الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، الحمد لله ذي الملك والملكوت ذي العزة والجبروت، الحمد لله حي قيوم لا ينام، عزيز لا يضام، قهار لا يرام، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. يقول الباري سبحانه وتعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and die not except on the state of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, bestow upon us the gift to die on the state of Islam. Allahumma ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. In the last khutbah, we have talking about the al-isti'anatu bil-sabr wa-salah, how seeking help through patience and salah in navigating one's journey of life. And the aspect that we have discussed mainly how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presenting and offering out of His greatest and immense generosity the possibility to have a spring, a flowing spring of blessing. Because when a person wants to find for themselves firmness, motivation, help, ways and tools to achieve their goals, they're going to define it according to their own creed, their own belief. For the people of the dunya, certainly they're going to be thinking of the accumulation of money, of success, and always worldly success. But for the believers, wait and listen and see the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And amazingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this a great flowing spring and sprouting spring of blessing is in the patience and is in the salah. Now, if this seeking help is something that we were talking mainly, what will hold and prevent a person to take advantage of this great gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But today is the question, how can someone seek help through patience? Mainly. And I will explain why patience only. Now, when we're talking about al-isti'anatu, is to seek help. So the seeking help, it's not amrun arad, it's not something, contingent, or something that is, it happened once a while. Al-isti'anatu here is part of the ubudiyyah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed us in Surah Al-Fatiha, Qur'ani wa Fatihatul Kitabi, that the heart of the surah is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Only you, Ya Allah, we worship, and only you, Ya Allah, we seek help with. We ask you for help. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So the worship is the core of the ubudiyyah, of the servitude, and the way of the isti'ana, inquiring the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, achieve the element of the ubudiyyah in one's journey of life, so they can be, achieving and helping with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala themselves in attaining the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, the isti'ana becomes part of one's daily life, because the isti'ana is part of the ubudiyyah. However, how can I seek help? How I inquiring Allah help subhanahu wa ta'ala to help me fulfill all the elements of the servitude, of the worship, of how to navigate my life in a way to be in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, seek help through patience and salah. So the seeking through patience, help through patience and salah is not something that you're going to need when someone is struck by a calamity or difficulty. No, you're going to need it for everyday life, for every choice you make, for every action you do. Now for the salats, the situation is clear. It might be, clear. Why? Because in the salah, you're going to go to the salah. You fulfill the condition of the salah, you stand for the salah, you bring the devotion, the focus, the humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dua, the supplication, the calling, the sujood. And you feel after doing such a thing, a power, a strength is building within you because of the salah. And this is how you seek help through the salah. It gives you firmness, it gives you strength. But the question mark is about the patience. How can I do to help myself with patience? The patience is not an action that I'm going to plan to do. I said I'm going to do this particular action as I'm doing like 2 rak'ah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the salah. But what will be the action of patience to do when I'm going to be doing it? I'm seeking to increase my power and strength in patience to help me in my life and my journey in my life. And this is the question mark. So when you say, for example, كيف تتم الاستعانة بالصبر, how someone can fulfill the seeking of the help through the patience. And here, what we would like to share, because it's so profound and something that every believer has to learn, is a necessity in their life, as the way of the isti'anah that you are reciting every day at least 17 times in your prayer, seeking and inquiring help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you navigate your life and your journey in your life. How to do this isti'anah? إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, you're going to do it through the patience first, because the salat itself is in need of patience, in sabr. And let's say sabr because the patience have many negative connotation in its definition when it comes in English. The sabr is different. The sabr is a virtue. The sabr is something, as we're going to explain it, it has perseverance, firmness. All of it is from part of the sabr. We'll say patience because that's what is, it being given as a translation, direct translation of the word of sabr. Therefore, when we think about how to seek help through the sabr, which is the sabr is already needed for the prayer, because without the sabr we will not be able to have the focus in the prayer. So when it comes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, seek help through patience and prayer. So the patience is the basis, and the prayer is that tool, that element that help you to strengthen the basis of your patience and to strengthen the basis of your soul and give that right provision for yourself to help you strong in navigating the journey of your life. The first thing that we need to know is patience is one of the action of the heart. Therefore, there is no true action that you're going to do, a physical action like the salah. And amazingly, the patience, it does not have restriction, no limit in its reward. Because when you perform a prayer, you start with the takbirah and you end with the taslim, beginning and end. But patience, it does not have an end. You walk and you are observing patience. You pray, observing patience. You work, observing patience. You go to sleep, observing patience. For this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. The people who prove patience, their reward will be given to them with no measure, because there is no limitation in way of observing the patience. However, what is really the patience? The patience, madaruhu, is to manage your willpower from one side, and we're going to explain it, and on the other side is to manage the whims of the self. So when we say, for example, al-iradatu, translation we say willpower, the will that you have. In everything, subhanallah, in every aspect of your life, I say, I want it. That's al-iradatu, I want this. So how much thing you want? That management of the want, to purify it, to cleanse it, to put it under the requirement of the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to guide it, to have it the right direction, that is an action of sabr. So you see, the action of sabr, therefore, is not like to repress yourself because you're going through difficulty. No, the action of sabr in the basis is an action that all of us we need. And everybody is using when it comes to the dunya. How many people, if they want to have, good grades and great diplomas, they repress, they subhanAllah hold themselves and be patient and patient. They don't do anything. They stop everything that they do from fun and everything. Why? Because they have an objective. So the control and the management of the willpower to be everything done in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the sabr. And the second aspect is to control yourself in a way to manage the two forces that they guiding our inner self. What are these two forces? The force of the shahwa, desire, and the force of anger. The force of anger. When people see them transgressing, people seeking for power, that's the force of anger, that force, subhanAllah, of overcoming others. So when the believers introduce the faculty, the ability, the force of the power to direct oneself to be moderate, when they use the anger, they use it in the way of the istiqamah, in the way that help them to be on the right path. And when they use the shahwa, they use in the moderate way, in the way of the guidance of Allah and His Messenger. So you see the management of the willpower and the whims of the self into, tapping into these two forces, the force of the desire as a force, subhanAllah, drive a person, and the force of the anger. Both of them, when you are managing them in a way of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the mere action of sabr. That is the mere action of patience. Because when someone, subhanAllah, is being, driven to do something that is going to conflict with the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the management of that irada, your nafs want it and you stop. No, I cannot do this because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained me to not do it. And that's what requires that repressing, bringing back the nafs, and that is the action of the sabr. So you see, the part of the sabr required in the basis of every action. For this reason, the sabr was mentioned more than 70 times in the Quran. And every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the sabr, He had added it to one of the great virtues, which is making the sabr is at the basis of all the virtues. The forbearing, courage, justice, focus, action, all of it, subhanAllah, the basis of it is patience, is perseverance, is thabat. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in many of the ayat. So, malakul fadaili is the sabr, is the sabr. So at the basis of the action, at the basis of every action, you'll find this patience. So when I'm saying seek help through the patience, if I do not have this type of management of the willpower and the self to help me have the clean basis, therefore we will not be able to grow a good action. Therefore our parable here, that the patience is the parable like the fertile land from which grows the good plants. وَالْأَرْضُ الطَّيِّبَةِ يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ. Therefore the fertile land that we're talking about is the sabr. So it's required and necessary for everyone to have this fertile ground upon which or in which is going to sow the seed of the good action. Now, Al-Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala gave us a beautiful definition in the way of the Sharia, not in the way of the meaning of the sabr in absolute meaning or in wide meaning, but when it comes in the Sharia, and he gave some beautiful aspect to help us, manage closely our interferences, our, way of navigating, acting in our life. He said, in the meaning, is to strengthen the ba'ath ad-dini. What is the ba'ath ad-dini? Al-ba'ath ad-dini, your brother, respected sister, is al-wazi'u, is that willpower, if we can call it this way, that drive you toward the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That has that, protecting you with the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guiding you with the love of Allah and love of His Messenger. That's the waza. In the other hand, you have it that in the opposite, the contrast, is that subhanAllah drive that is driven by shahwa or driven by fear. Someone, will resist or will be running away from things because of fear of the unknown. So, the sabr is to strengthen that the drive of the deen, which is founded on the love of Allah and His Messenger and the seeking of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to overcome the other drive. That is the sabr. So you see here the patience, it's really kind of a struggle and a whole battle within the nafs, within the nafs. And to really strengthen this drive, this willpower, to have the upper hand and prevail, and to help you be honored, it has 3, let's say, pillars, to make it easy. So these 3 pillars are, first, the basis, the second is al-ma'iyya, which is going to explain, and the third is the outcome. So when you are seeking help through patience, you need to have this element. This is going to strengthen you. This is going to help you to be more purified, more focused, more aware of your path, and more clear for you your objectives. Then the first thing, al-mabda', what is the basis? The basis is, as we have mentioned, in a part of the khutbah last time, is to base your relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on patience. Not, oh Allah give me. No. The first thing, that you stand in humility, in focus, and subhanallah, waiting. That's the patience. Why? Because you are waiting for Allah to talk to you, for you to implement. For this reason, Allah said in Surah Al-Taghabun, قَالَ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, fear Allah as much as you are able to, وَاسْمَعُوا, and listen, and then obey. So when a person is fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing he said, Ya Allah, tell me what I should do. So when you do such a thing, you are in a state of patience, because that patience is required at that moment as a basis for you to help you to able to listen. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the other ayah, O you who believe, obey Allah and His Messenger, and do not turn away from Him while you are listening. And do not be like those who said, we are listening, but they are not. Why? Because the heart is distracted. So to bring the heart into the focus, it requires that action of patience. So the first basis that you're going to base your relation between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is patience. So the patience which is sukoonul qalbi li amrillah. What it means? The standing still of the heart to the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just listen. Just listen. Because the covenant between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hear and obey. So when you listen and you hear and obey, this is only can be achieved with the patience. Now when you come to this point, when your heart, subhanAllah, stands still, then that's when the good action is going to grow. And that's when the blessing is going to come, and that's when the tranquility is going to dwell to your heart. And it is a law from Allah. Don't think this is one of the wisdom that you have to do that you might achieve. No, this is a law like the law of the physics. You stand still, your heart be patient, you listen, your action grow into the right way, the blessing will come, and the tranquility dwell into your heart. Therefore, the basis of the relation or patience will only bring you tranquility. Bring you tranquility and peace of mind. Give you examples. Ibrahim alayhi salam facing the fire. What tranquility he had. The whole nation gathering to burn him. And he's there, subhanallah, saying Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. We always saying Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil as the most powerful, statement, and it is to help us and save us. But we didn't look beyond this statement, which is the tranquility of the heart of Ibrahim when he was saying it. That is the person who has the khushu' and the sabr, who will be given the help related to Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. When you say Allah is my sufficient and the best disposer of all my affairs, look at your heart first. Is it standing still? It has that subhanallah, that humility to Allah. That's when it's going to come the tranquility. The same for the Prophet ﷺ and the companion in Hamra al-Asad, the day after Uhud, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Ali Imran, those when they're terrorizing them and scaring them, people are gathering against you to come to kill you and exterminate you. They said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, and increase them in submission and iman. Why? Because they already have the tranquility, which is come as a result of the sabr, which is the basis upon which they base their relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if any other person will tell you, I'll guarantee this for you, he said, you are a liar. Because you cannot rely on any person like you. but this is Allah telling you that. Allah, He's the one who's defining for you this principle, this basis. I give you an example. The example in Ghazwat Uhud. The Prophet ﷺ was saying to the companion, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, this time in Ghazwat Uhud there came 3,000, soldiers, 3,000 fighters. Compared to Badr, it was only 1,000. So the Prophet ﷺ said, will not be enough for you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to support you with the 3,000 of angels. Will be Allah descending them for you. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, here the basis, here the principle. قَالَ بَلَى. Nay, not only that. إِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا. That's the principle. If you prove patience and taqwa, I will provide you with 5,000 of angels, not just coming to support you, they are already skilled in fighting, musawwimin. What is? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you, if you have taqwa and sabr, if you have sabr and taqwa, Allah will give you more. And Allah will not send them to help you, defeat them. Allah is sending them just to bring you tranquility in your heart. وَمَا جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بُشْرًا. Glad tidings for your heart. وَلِتَطْمَئِنَّ بِهِ قُلُوبُكُمْ. And for your heart to find satisfaction and tranquility. So this is a basis, wa'ad min Allah. Wa'ad is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he was, subhanallah, ended the persecution in Mecca, in Batha'i and Ramda fi Mecca, in that blazing heat, and putting on him this giant rock, he was saying, Ahadun Ahad. The companions, they were shocked. They said, Ya Bilal, how could have you endured such, subhanallah, torture and such persecution? Look what Bilal said. قال مزج طعم الإيمان بمرارة العذاب. It's, subhanallah, it has mixed for me the sweetness of faith, the sweetness of iman, the sweetness that I'll find it from the sabr, from my connection with Allah, with the bitterness of the pain. But halawatul iman, but the sweetness of the iman overcame the bitterness of pain. That's why I was patient. This is how Allah helped me to be patient. And this is actually the second point, is al-ma'iyyah, because when you have this basis, the next step it will be like Allah is with you. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah ma'a sabirin. So when you plan and you base your relation and seeking the help by having managing your irada, by managing yourself to be on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the case of Bilal, like the case of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selling that in Ali Imran, like the case of Ibrahim, like the case of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Uhud, and many other cases, you're going to find Allah is with you. Al-ma'iyyatu. So whatever strike you, the first thing, don't look at the nature of the calamity, don't look how deep is the hurt, but look from where it came, from Allah. So then be subhanallah, have the satisfaction, because Allah is going to be with you. He said, how can you to resist? Allah is going to give you that power. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qala wasbir, have patience, وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Your patience is only by Allah. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the glad tidings of those who prove patience. Why? Because Allah is with you, is going to be with you, supporting you, helping you, providing you, give you the satisfaction into your heart in the midst of the biggest or the bitterest subhanallah situation, as you see it today in our people of Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them, support them, and pour on them patience and rahmah and blessing, and defeat all those mu'tadeen dhalimeen ya Rabbil Alameen. You see it today, you see it today. You see it, the Quran, you see it live in our people of Gaza. فَاللَّهُ مَعَهُ فَاللَّهُ مَعَهُ. Allah told us in Surah Al-Fatih, لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ Allah is pleased with the believer, with those who gave the covenant under the tree. These believers who gave the covenant under the tree in Al-Hudaybiyah, it was after the rumor that it has been said that Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu was killed. And they given the covenant for what? To die for the sake of Allah. To fight. Did they fight? They didn't. Is anybody of them get hurt? Nobody get hurt. But they proved patience. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ يُبَيْعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. Behold, they have given you covenant under the tree. فَعَلِمَ مَا فِي. Allah knew what is there in their heart. Because Allah knew in their heart, He had the sakina, the tranquility to descend and dwell into their heart. Which is mean, you don't need sometimes to do anything. The companion that didn't get engaged in any fight. Nobody get hurt. Nobody got slayed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the sakina, the force of the sakina, and the reward of the conquest of Mecca. Why? Because He knew in their hearts, what's in their heart. So what you need, look, Ibrahim alayhi salam in the biggest trial with his son Ismail. Did he kill his son Ismail? Ismail grew up and he became Rasul and Nabi. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the book. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with him. But it was the question, the battle in the heart. That's why subhanAllah, the isti'ana, the seeking of the help, it comes to that purification of the heart to know how to direct it, how to manage it, how to have it to be settled into the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the outcome, just to summarize, the outcome, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, the sabirun, they will have their reward with no measure. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala associating this dunya. قال the Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped them and He empowered them on the earth with Musa alayhi salam. Why? Because they were like, who they are? No, because of their patience. وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ الْحُسْنَ عَلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ بِمَا صَبَرُوا. And Allah fulfilled His word, the good word on the children of Israel because of their patience. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of patience make you a leader that guide to the goodness. قال وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَىٰ قال بِمَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا. And we make out them leaders because of their patience. So all of that, dear brother, here are the elements that help you to understand the depth and how profound is the virtue of patience in our life as a way of the implementation of the isti'ana that you are reciting in Surah Al-Fatiha. And in this way, not only you're going to bring that tranquility in your heart, but you're going to honoring yourself and you're going to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and guarantee for yourself the outcome. To have this treasure present all the time, you need two elements. The first element, it need to be associated with taqwa. Sabr need to be associated with taqwa. As Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was saying to his brother, he said, قَالَ إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِي وَيَصْبِرْ. Whoever who show piety and patience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not neglect their action, which is mean elevate them, honor them. And look the story of Yusuf and Yaqub to understand this ayah. Just go study it. And then when you think about it, then the sabr in absolute, in the abstract, does not have any meaning. Someone, making sabr and subhanAllah sacrificing themselves to have extra dollars, that sabr is in vain. Someone making sabr to become a doctor or become an engineer, do it, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you to do it in the sake of Allah and in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you just do it for money, do it from the dunya, all of it is in vain. The only sabr that help you in the way that we are mentioning here is the sabr that is coupled with taqwa, with piety. Why? Because the piety is the action of the iman helping you and guiding you to get safe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore the sabr is that basis, that drive, that engine, that power to help you regulate your trajectory to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He's pleased with you. That's why it's all taqwa and sabr. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you satisfaction. He said, all the people who are cunning against you, when anything bad happened to you, they are so happy. When something good happened to you, they are so sad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you show piety and patience, they will not hurt you. So even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treating your emotion against people who are cunning against you, hurting you, trying to hurt you, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't, because they cannot do anything, they cannot hurt you. And this is in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I said, there's many other evidence, but we do not have the time. And Musa alayhi salam, Al-Khidr, he knew that Musa, it would be impossible for him to have patience. Why? Because Musa was asked for patience out of the scope of the taqwa. He said, have patience, but without taqwa. How come? Because according to the knowledge that revealed to Musa, all what Al-Khidr was doing is haram. For Musa, he is sabirun yattaqi. if he's going to prove patience with taqwa, so how can he prove patience with his conflict with his own sharia? That's why he said this is shay'an imra, shay'an nukra. This is something that you are doing so wrong. He cannot be patient. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing you the only patience that is effective and it has his blessing and it will be inscribed within the divine law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who's come to taqwa. The last element, which is the second, that everything is done for the sake of Allah. For this reason, in the first surah, and the first, let's say the second surah after Iqra, and it came Al-Muddathir and Al-Muzzammil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to his Prophet, وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ, and to your Lord, you be patient. And when you say your Lord to be patient, so everything that you're doing is for the sake of Allah. So all your life, subhanAllah, is traveling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what you're trying here, everything that will disturb you, that push you from the path in your journey to Allah, you're going to prove patience, so you have to prevent yourself to not fall into it. And that is the journey. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a very beautiful, simple action to navigate and to help yourself. Because when it comes to the whims of the self, the desires, sometimes you don't know what is good for you and what is not good for you. And for this reason, Allah makes Salatul Istikhara. Salatul Istikhara, you pray it, and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know, choose for me. So when you submit to Allah to have the choice of the matter of your life in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's how a process of cleansing that empower the patience into yourself as a basis, and all your deeds will grow with the blessing and the tranquility will dwell into your heart. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى أما بعد. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing to his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to your Lord be patient. So the Lord here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this ayah is really a summary of all what we have said. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ, the basis, the principle, the journey, the drive, the empowerment, the provision, and the direction, and the goal. All of it is incorporated in وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. Therefore, when the believer implements such a thing, he and she find themselves always going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the sign of a true person, perseverant and patient on the path of Allah, is the person who always you'll find him with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's always running back to Allah. You find him more salah, more worship, getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his mihrab praying. That is the sign. And when you do such a thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overwhelm you with his grants and blessing. Because every time you encounter a difficulty into your life, you make kind of a breakthrough. After you break through, Allah will give you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about Ibrahim. He said, when he left them, when he left his people after the big trial, we have given him Ishaq and Yaqub. Look, the great grant. And Ishaq and Yaqub, and came after them, subhanAllah. Look, the great grant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Ibrahim alayhi salam. قال ومن ذريته داود وسليمان وأيوب ويوسف وموسى وهارون وزكريا ويحيى وعيسى وإلياس وإسماعيل واليسع ويونس. All of them. This is what Allah mentioned only in Surah Al-An'am. And look, every good deeds of this prophet, Ibrahim alayhi salam has part of it. Because he is, subhanAllah, the first seed of khair for all this offspring. When it happened, قَالَ فَلَمَّا اعْتَزَلَهُمْ, when he dissociated himself from the pagan and he left after the trial and the big tribulation of the fire Allah gave him. So you, when you do the same thing and you break through after the difficulty, Allah will give you all the blessings that you cannot even imagine. Look, Maryam alayhi salam in her seclusion. SubhanAllah, food comes to her hand. And when Zakaria saw the same thing, he ran back to Allah inside his mihrab, in his seclusion. The angel telling him, will give you the glad tidings of Yahya. And it comes to a last point to summarize everything. Now, anything that happened to us in our life, if you think of what we have said, you have three things. First thing, Allah promised you, He's going to help you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you prove patience, He's going to be with you. And then the outcome is the best of the outcome, the great reward. So why you will be sad? Here comes the answer from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The best who ever prayed and the best ever heart existed. He reminds us of something. If something happened to you, it's because of two things. It's either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want to try you, and then you implement the three elements that we have mentioned, then Allah put tranquility into your heart. But what if what's happening to you is a result of your misdeeds, is a result of the wrath of Allah? That's the big problem. And here the Prophet ﷺ in Al-Ta'if قال إن لم يكن بك غضب علي فلا أبالي. Ya Allah, if this is not the result of a wrath from you upon me, I don't care. People, they've been asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide them certain things, going through difficulty, but it's not happening. Say, Ya Allah, if this is not the result of a wrath, I don't care. Why? Because the outcome will be great. People are, subhanAllah, suffering from diseases. They ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every day, but shifa is not coming. Say, Ya Allah, if this is not the result of your wrath, I don't care. People asking for children every day, begging Allah, no children is coming. Say, Ya Allah, if this is not the result of your wrath, I don't care. That's the humility. People asking Allah for jobs, for entry, it's not happening. Ya Allah, if this is not the result of your wrath, I don't care. Why I don't care? Because you're going to be with me. You're going to give me the satisfaction in my heart. And you're going to have the outcome for me, the best of the outcome. Because you said it, Ya Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ come to close. Because we might not have that power to stand without being deprived of things that we desire. قال غير أن عافيتك أوسع لي. But the each situation for me, Ya Allah, it will be the most befitting. In a nice way, give me the shifa. Give me what I have asked. Give me these children. Give me the outcome to help me cover my needs. That is the iftiqar. That is the pure ubudiyya that will founded by following the seeking help through patience and salah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the right knowledge and the right way and the right striving to be able to come to this level, to be closer to Allah, honoring ourselves with patience and salah, and tapping on this great flowing spring of blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فاجعلنا يا ربنا من عبادك الصابرين وارزقنا الخشوع يا أرحم الراحمين في طريقنا إليك. اللهم اجعلنا متوكلين بك مؤمنين عليك متوكلين ولك مسلمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا أجمعين وثبتنا على الصراط المستقيم. اللهم يا أرحم الراحمين ارحم إخواننا في غزة. اللهم آمن روعاتهم واستر عوراتهم وسد جوعتهم وارحم شيوخهم ونساءهم وأطفالهم وانصر مجاهديهم يا رب العالمين واقبل قتلاهم في الشهداء يا رب العالمين ودمر الأعداء المعتدين إنك قوي عزيز يا رحمن يا رحيم. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة يرحمكم الله.